I think it's really important to understand the coaching relationship from being coached. I'm surprised at so many coaches that I've met along the way that don't have a coach. I have a friend that says you have to always have a coach and a mastermind. You have to have those two things all the time, because those things will help you really find your way as you're growing. Because sometimes you're changing and you don't know, just because you're moving in a direction, is this really my direction, or is it just the next thing that I think I should be doing because I want to fit in, or because I want to be normal? This is what good coaches do.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And we are continuing our series on the coaches that don't suck. So I had to personally reach out to my friend Sherry Hogan English because I knew she was definitely a coach that did not suck. She's been a member of the Coaches Plaza community for years. She's been just such an amazing community member and participant. Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. My honor.
Yes. So dear listener, Sherry is a fellow certified high performance coach. She's an author. She's dedicated to helping boomer eldest daughters reclaim their authentic selves and thrive in the third act. With a background as a resilient nonprofit executive, Sherry draws on her own journey to empower women in their late 60s and beyond to reconnect, reimagine, and reinvent for a fulfilling and joyful life. Oh my gosh, Sherry, this is awesome. So you've been a CHPC for some time. You're now focused on the eldest daughter in the third act. Tell me a little bit about how you evolved to this niche. This is a very specific niche. So tell me a little bit about it.
Fortunately, I've worked with probably about 50 clients over the last 3 to 4 years. Men, women, various ages. And I just found that I lit up working with women that are in my generation. And then just coming, in coaching, you'd be in it a couple of sessions and I'd say, by any chance, are you an eldest daughter? And they'd say, yes. And you just knew that there was some different sort of perspectives, outlooks, feeling very responsible for everything and everyone. One of my questions is usually, tell me who you were before you were everything to everyone. And so, and then we get that conversation going. And yeah, so it's very fulfilling. These are my sisters. There's a lot of us out there, so I'm not worried about the niche being too small.
No, it's not. No, yeah, it's really good. I think when a coach can get specific about who they love to work with, it makes a huge, huge difference. And I remember, you're making me think of my own niche story. Back in my early days of the entrepreneurial chapter, I did the same thing. I dated around. I coached all kinds of different people with different backgrounds, different goals, aspirations. It was such a wonderful period of my career because I got to try so many different things. But just like you, I found that I kept getting drawn to somebody who was also coachy, just like me, but perhaps didn't have the same level of confidence when it came to selling their services or feeling like they could be confident being themselves online, and just feeling, honestly, that overwhelm. I'm like, oh my God, I love overwhelm. Overwhelm is amazing, as something to coach around because it's such a coachable topic. And yeah, we both kind of did the same thing, dating around quite a bit and then kind of finding that dream client. I love it. So talk to me a little bit about your certified high performance coaching. We have a lot of CHPCs that listen to the show, but we've got a lot of people that don't. How does high performance coaching help an eldest daughter in their third chapter of life? Like, how are you planning to use it, or how do you use it?
I think just, the 6 performance habits are appropriate to anybody. And I think especially with boomer women in, 60 and above, whether they identify as a boomer or not. That unfortunately that title tag has become a little controversial later. The okay boomer meme is zapping us. Anyway, so the point of all that is that there are the frameworks that we have, the various sessions and things. There are so many things in there that I can use that really help a woman sort of just get focused again. So what I do is I take somebody through a 5 frameworks. We look at their beliefs, we look at their values, and then their vision. Because I found that I was often misaligned with goals because I really wasn't solid on what my beliefs were, and not just what I believe in, but sort of where it came from, and just really understanding that, particularly as a boomer eldest daughter, that I was really programmed, that we're programmed from society, from family, to be that woman who puts everybody else first, the prolific people pleaser, and when you stop and think about what you need, there's this sense of selfishness and guilt that is just pervasive. And so really looking at your beliefs and where they came from, and which ones you can take on that serve you now. The same with values. I look at what I call big V values, which is integrity, and I believe in honesty. But then, do you want to get up at 6 a.m, or you want to sleep until noon? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? How do you want to still contribute to the world? Do you? Who makes it in? Who gets pushed out? What stays in? What stays out? As we start to look at your visioning. And then we move from that into making aligned goals. And then the implementation is where we actually start coaching. And I use a lot of Brendan's work because it's just pretty fabulous. And it makes sense. Women are looking to get to that next level, to really have ownership, personal agency. And if Brendan isn't about personal agency, I don't know what he is about.
Totally. Yeah. And for those that are unfamiliar, Brendan Burchard is the author of High Performance Habits. He's the founder of the High Performance Institute that taught the curriculum that Sherry and I are referencing throughout this episode. And by the way, if I love just like showing everybody exactly, what happened, how it happened, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, even in the now. Brendan is one of those mentors that has endured in my journey for pretty much the whole time I've been, actually, like even before I was an entrepreneur. And I think it was exactly that. He wrote another book called The Motivation Manifesto, and he really teaches and embodies this method to freedom and personal expression and personal development that I would recommend to anybody. So I'll include the link to Growth Day, which is his app where you can hear from him every day, in the show notes. Because if you don't follow Brendan, you must. Like, he's really, really good. Yeah. So Sherry, talk to me a little bit about, as a coach, what have you noticed works the best for people pleasing? Because I think that that's something that all of our dear listeners struggle with to an extent, because I honestly haven't really met too many heart-centered, amazing coaches who don't on a level battle that same issue of the people pleasing, of like, am I honoring my values, or am I trying to make, for example, my potential clients happy, or my existing employer happy, or my family happy while I'm trying to build this business? Like, this comes up a lot in my coaching programs. So I'm just curious about, like, what's your take on the best way to identify that people pleasing could be even happening, and what do we do about it? Because I think as coaches, it's the same thing. Like, when you get that liberation of the big V values and getting more specific about, like, well, what is your expression of your freedom? Just this morning, the day of this recording is the day after the election. This morning, I was just like feeling, I think I was feeling like the collective sort of relief and the fear and the sadness and like all of this stuff. And I was just like, I'm going to go to Starbucks, and I broke from my normal routine to go hang out just like among the people to kind of get a little bit more grounded. And to me, that was an expression of freedom, of like, I have the freedom of the time, the energy, the space to just like go do a thing at a time when a lot of other people are stuck in a commute. So like, Sherry, talk to me a little bit about, people pleasing, getting past that sensation of selfishness, getting past this fear, this worry of or attachment.
Yeah. So there's two key things that I think have helped me with my path, and then I try to share with the women I work with. One of them is I worked for a hospice organization for 8 years, and I was the associate executive director of our foundation. So that's where you raise all the funds for hospice care. And so I worked with and spent a lot of time with families of our inpatient patients, and then with patients. And I had multiple deathbed conversations with people. They weren't dying that moment, but in the days and weeks to come, yes. And they wanted very much to make sure that some things were in place, because they wanted to make sure that they made a donation to our organization, because they were very grateful. So in those conversations, speaking to both men and women, it struck me that everybody that I spoke to was dying with regrets. And the key thing that I saw with men was they regretted things they did. They worked too hard. They had left sometimes the mother of their children. They broke their home. Things like that, big things that they just really regretted. Women, 100% regretted what they didn't do. They regretted not living their authentic life. They regretted putting everybody else first for so long, forever, and never knowing how to step off that wheel without feeling massively guilty and selfish. And a lot of that is the, programming that we got. And so that just, one, scared the bejesus out of me. I thought, you know what? I'm on the same path. I need to do something different. And so one of the things I did this year was I went to Portugal by myself for the whole month of April. And my husband said,
that's cool.
Yeah. And my husband said, I told him, I created the whole plan and all that. And then I shared it with him, and he said, Sherry, I can't go to Portugal for a month. I said, I love you, baby. You're not invited. So I went, and it was fabulous. And then I came home. I've wanted to go to Portugal for 20 years, and my husband doesn't like to travel. I'm not going to not travel anymore because of that. I have to be careful because it's expensive, but things like that, where those are the things that I'm changing in my life. I don't want to be laying on my deathbed going, gosh, I wonder what Portugal looked like. The second thing that really honed it in for me is that there is a coach I know, and I coached with him for about 6 months. And a lot of what we went through was me feeling guilty. Oh, I need to do this for my sister. I need to do that. And then feeling resentful and all those feelings. And he finally said, when we have no idea what somebody's life path is, and we don't know the lesson that they're here to learn, and if you sometimes people have to hit rock bottom, and if you keep putting Tempur-Pedic beds on the rocks, they're never going to get what they came here to get, the lesson they learned. You are actually impeding the path of others, their path, their natural focus, and what they're here to do. And I just thought, that's the exact opposite. And that a lot of times when we think we're helping, we're not helping, we're hurting. Biggest way that you can help others is to live your true life and give from the overflow. If you picture women give from an empty vessel all the time. And if you picture a cup under a faucet of source, whatever it is that feeds you, and that your cup is always full, and the overflow, you give from that, then you give from joy and grace and connection. And you don't give in a way that you're resentful and angry and empty. And then you feel guilty about all those feelings. So it's just one big, mess.
It's like a loop, right?
Yeah.
Something I've been thinking about and talking about more lately is this idea of what coaching is. Coaching is a leadership and influence role where we're facilitating a process with our clients. But I wanted to get even more specific, because I do really, really well with specifics,
Okay.
And so the thing that's been coming to mind lately is I'm like, we're kind of the rule breakers and rewirers. You know, so it's like, what's that old set of rules that you had been abiding by that maybe even at another time in your life, those rules made sense. Those rules had you in balance. Those rules, like, let's just say that not all rules that are holding you back always did. Sometimes the rules that are holding you back now are rules that were made perfect sense when you first formed the rule. And when I think about what is coaching, it's like, well, I think it's bringing more awareness to what are the programs or rules that we're executing and bringing more consciousness to that so that we get a choice. We get a decision that we can rewrite the rule or delete the rule or replace the rule with something that's going to be of higher service. And I know, like, for me as a coach, when I was starting out, I was very much pouring from the empty vessel still. I'm a millennial, but I'm still a woman. And so I was doing the empty vessel thing. And it took actually a coaching relationship and a coach of mine to say, Amanda, your highest paid priority is to be good, right? Like, you need to feel good. You need to feel safe. You need to feel joy, fulfillment. That's not that you can never experience grief or you can never experience guilt or you can never experience any of these normal human experiences. I super hate the bypassing of that sometimes. Like, we can emotionally bypass. But if your rule is, I'm always guilty for everything that I do. The rule is I'm guilty for walking into the room and maybe inconveniencing somebody else. It's like, okay, you know, how is that going to serve your highest self going forward? Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't my role. As the oldest of four in a very fractured and violent home, I ran my rule is walk in and take over, and that doesn't work either. And so, yeah, you've got to read the room. You have to understand your role, and that comes with assessing, asking questions, just like we do in coaching. One of the greatest ways that I've broken that is I have an adult daughter and we have a close relationship. It's much closer now because she'll start to tell me something and I want to fix it. And I'm very male in that. I just start going into, what about this? What about that? What about the other? It's the one area in coaching that I've really had to break. Brendan says, don't solve, discuss. I want to solve everything. So I've really I've really had to work on that. But now when my daughter starts to say anything, I say, hey, let me ask you a question. What's my role here? Am I listening? Am I thinking about some thoughts that might be helpful for you? Tell me what you need. And sometimes she'll say, I just want to vent. I just want you to be my mommy. And I'm going to want a big hug at the end. And now I know, don't solve, don't start spouting off, don't tell her what she did wrong, what she could have done right. Same with clients, same with your husband, same with a lot of your friends, that kind of thing. And sometimes she says, well, let me get it all out, and then I'd like to kind of unpack it with you. I am curious about what you're thinking. And then I'm like, oh, good, this is what I'm good at.
I get to do the part I love. Yeah. But, and I love that you called this out too, right? And that's what I'm really thinking about with these old rules versus the new rules is, there was a time in a season, I'm guessing, that you learned that it was better to like walk into the room and take control of the situation.
Yeah.
And that was the better move as opposed to other moves that might have been available to you. But, I think what can hold us back when we're trying to grow or we're trying to grow our outcomes in new ways is we miss that there are things that we could be trying or doing in a new way.
Yeah.
And that's honestly the power of coaching, as we like to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So Sherry, what is your favorite part of coaching? Like, one question I really like to ask is, what are 3 ways that a coach can not suck?
I think the first way is to really be on a journey of your own personal growth and reinvention. I think it's really important to understand the coaching relationship from being coached. I'm surprised at so many coaches that I've met along the way that don't have a coach. I have a friend that says you have to always have a coach and a mastermind. You have to have those 2 things all the time because those things will help you really find your way as you're growing. Because sometimes you're changing and you don't know, just because you're moving in a direction. Is this really my direction, or is it just the next thing that I think I should be doing because I want to fit in or because I want to be normal? This is what good coaches do. So I think it's really getting really solid with yourself and understanding your beliefs, the value that you have to give, really understanding your role of discuss and discovery and decision. And it's the client's decisions, not your decisions. So yours is discovery and discussion, opening up, seeing those. I always go back here, the blind spots that someone has, and then recognizing your own blind spots as things are coming up. Man, I do that too, and that's not pretty, or nice or good. So I think really knowing yourself and working with a coach. I think the second thing is just being really, really present and curious. Just hearing and listening and asking for clarification when you hear something, and then being brave to say, hey, in the last 3 sessions, you have said this, and yet it seems so out of character or out of alignment with where you say you're going. Tell me more about that. And just, bringing things up. And then when somebody says, oh, well, we don't have to talk about that, I go, that's the exact thing we have to talk about. And just being courageous enough to do that and not worrying about whether they're going to like me. Or my favorite client I ever had, for the first 3 or 4 sessions, he would literally be so pissed off. He wanted to hang up. He just wanted to get off the phone one time. And I said, this is exactly, we have to stick. This is where we stick together. I'm going to hold this space. We're going to go through it. Go. Curse me out. I don't care. What's going on? And he ended up being like one of my absolute favorite clients. And he's the person who gave me one of my best testimonials, and still always checks in with me. Every couple of months, he sends me a text that says, what are you up to, master woman? Or, some wonderful thing. So I think it's being very present, very curious. And then that third thing was just being also courageous.
Love that.
Ask more questions for clarification, and then be brave enough to say what you think you see. And then asking, how it fits. And then sometimes when there's that, well, you've hit that nerve, you're like, wow, okay. You know what my favorite thing that I've ever heard from a client is, wow, they just sit back and say, I didn't even know I thought that. Or another version is, I've never said that out loud, even to myself.
Exactly.
And in that moment, I feel humble, honored just to be in that moment, because I know what those moments feel like when I've had them in coaching. Those are big breakthroughs.
Those are huge. And you're reminding me of something that I teach my students and my team members when they're selling on my behalf is ask the question that'll lose the sale, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you know that there's a question to be asked, then that's the one you need to ask. Because if they can't trust you to ask the question in the enrollment process, then down the stream, when you're in the coaching relationship and you're suddenly asking all these nosy questions, that's not setting anybody up for success. And I think it took me a few years to really embody and learn, like, they pay you to push. Because, that people pleasy side was just like, oh, I don't want to make them feel blah, blah, blah. I don't want them to, yada, yada. And it took me a minute to realize, I'm like, oh, it's actually a form of manipulation. It's a little like taking the Tempur-Pedic mattress and, making sure that they don't, bump into anything. And it's like, well, if they're not even bumping into the coach that they hired, like, what are we even doing here?
Right.
That's not to say you've got to be a big instigator. Like we've been interviewed a lot of coaches in this program, and like there's some that their authentic style is lots of cussing and jumping up and down and beating of the chest, because that's very like that's authentic. Like that's not them like faking it to make it, and it's like I'll push you, but I think that people choose a coach for the relationship as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And so if your authentic way of pushing is simply to ask the question directly, or one of my favorite, weapons of choice is to simply look at the camera and just hold that space of silence, it can create the same pressure as beating your chest and jumping up and down. You can find your style and your way of doing it. I love it. So Sherry, what's the best way for people to follow you?
Right now, as I'm sort of pivoting from just the high performance coaching to this very specific niche, my website would be the best way, sherryhoganenglish.com.
Perfect. We'll make sure we put that in the link below in the show notes. And dear listener, make sure that you've hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And do us a favor and leave a review. 5 stars, please. Sherry worked really, really hard. But seriously, having the reviews up there and showing that you're supportive of the show actually helps other people find the show. And this might have been the exact conversation they needed to hear. In fact, you probably have 3 friends who would benefit from this episode. So go ahead and send them the link to this episode so they can hear about niching down, about people pleasing, about all the things that we talked about in the episode. Sherry, thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thank you. It's awesome seeing you again.
Yes, I loved it. And, just cheering you on. I hope that you have so much success with this new niche. And listener, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.